listening to the Ice Prep Podcast. Here's your hosts, Bryan and Pat.
Welcome, everyone, to Ice Prep Podcast, where, if you can see, I'm no longer in the upstairs living room. Instead, I've kind of got the background around me very dark so that you can't see that I'm in the basement.
He is in a dungeon. He's sent me a bunch of photos of this, and it honestly looks like he's running like a bootleg radio station. Like he's in the dark with his headphones on, and he's like in a corner by an old fireplace, and there's like rations beside him. It is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Maybe I'll have to put a photo online later, and maybe if I get bored, I'll plug the lava lamp in that I can see. That's like right here in my eye line, just like right there. I have an unplugged lava lamp.
No.
But hey, I've got a ring light now. I've officially become that person. Pat's had one for a while.
You know, because I'm vain. No, because I already told you this story, but at work, everyone thought I was sick. Every single time I'd hop on a Zoom call, they would be like, "Are you okay? You look really sick. You're like really gray." And I'd be like, "Huh, because my hair is gray." And they're like, "No, like your face. It looks like you're dying." And it was just, I have a window right beside me, and it just washed me out. So I said, "Screw it," and I bought like a $20 ring light off of Amazon because I was like, I can't handle anymore. Are you okay? Because like no, but you know,
I don't want it to be because I look like the color of Bryan's shirt.
Right?
So just before we got going, we both pulled up the basically ticker so we can see the score. 0-0. Since then, in the like 3 minutes that we were getting ourselves ready to go live, now 3-0 for the Avs. Game 2, obviously. Game 1, apparently anything that Edmonton touches ever since they got past LA is just insanity.
Yep.
And who knows if it'll stay that way in this game, because you've got Darcy Kemper did not start for the Avalanche.
Yeah, so what I thought at first was potentially him re-aggravating his eye. Actually, I got a phone call when he went out, so I didn't even notice that he had left. I hopped on the phone, and I was just kind of chatting, and then I came back, and my buddy texted me, and he was just like, "Hey, what happened to Kemper? I know his friend Sos is in." And I was like, "What?" And I originally thought that maybe it was something to do with his eye, and that was the reason, because in the Nashville series, he got that stick in the eye through his cage and everything like that. But then, Bryan, actually, you said that you're the first person who even I saw anybody talking about it. He took a couple pucks to the mask just before, and his vision started to go, which is pretty scary.
I don't remember where I saw that one, but it was one of those things that somebody had gone back to look, and then it was shortly after that he pulled himself out of the game, which is something you never want, but also probably a good thing that he was smart enough to realize, hey, something's not quite right here. And
Don't be a hero.
And even though Francouz ended up letting in 3 after that, he is still... I know that the biggest thing for Avs fans is we get to the playoffs, a goalie gets injured, we get out in the second round. Well, hey, you made it past the second round. You've got one goalie down, but it could just be precautionary reasons. Like, you look at the Oilers, they literally didn't announce until just before puck drop that it was going to be Mike Smith starting in net, because he is the worst Game 1 goalie that the Edmonton Oilers have ever had. I think his... average save percent over 5 game ones for the Oiler is like 0.6 something. He's only 0-3 because Koskinen got the loss in game 1 because the Oilers ended up coming back in that game. To me, that is the dumbest thing. Like, he let in
the majority of the goals.
I mean, technically... No, he let in the same amount of goals because there was the empty netter, right? No. He let in 4 goals, Koskinen did. So he becomes the goalie of record the second that the Oilers make the game close, which is such a weird hockey thing. Yeah. But as it stands right now, 10 minutes to go in the second, Avs looking good. As we were saying before this got started, I know this is kind of a little bit of a live chat as it's happening and listening back to it after, but Rantanen hasn't been having the greatest of playoffs.
No.
He's looked,
Wow.
for the most part, kind of invisible. He got demoted to the second line, and he's playing a little bit better now that he's got Kadri kind of to carry him.
Okay, so first of all, he is still a point per game. So to say that he is not doing well and he's invisible, that's there's a couple other players that I would call invisible in comparison to that.
When I think of Mikko Rantanen, though, it's more for the goals, not for the putting up the assists, right? So that's where, for me, it's like if he's not putting up the goals, mind you, they're getting them all from JT Compher, apparently, who scored, 5 goals in the last 3 games for the Avs, not including this one. So, nobody expected that one.
Timothy, he is really quite surprisingly good. But like not at the same time. I don't know. He's a good player at times when he feels like it seems. But back to Mikko, assists really were a really strong point for him. Not this past year, but the one before it. That's actually where he garnered most of his points. Quite a bit of them were assists. So it doesn't surprise me that that's sort of where he's regressed a little bit in the goal scoring, because he was scoring out of his mind throughout the season. I actually really like this move by Bednar by splitting up what they like this big hero line and kind of moving it around to make the second line even more lethal. It was already really good. It had oh boy, I don't even know the friggin' lineup now.
Was it Kadri, Nichushkin, and
it was Lehkonen. Yeah,
was
so
it
was
Lehkonen? Yeah, because it was because that what a
swap.
I would like to point out that when that trade happened, I said he was going to be amazing, and you were like, I don't know, and he has turned into be like I said he is going to be one of those players that is going to be like an unsung playoff hero, and that's kind of the way he plays.
Yep. He gets into the corners, and that's why I really like that move, is because previously Rantanen, he would kind of go in the corners, not so much. Landeskog, he's a net front guy. He, as much as he does like to go in the corners from time to time, he's also like, that's where the majority of his injuries have come from, is going into the corners. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's a little more hesitant now. And McKinnon, you don't want him going into the corners. You want to get him the puck to just hurt people.
Do whatever McKinnon thing he's going to do. Or then pass it off to Makar, and Makar does whatever he's going to do. Yeah,
exactly. So you have 3 people that aren't really willing to get down and dirty into it. Like, they don't really want to get into those little scrums. They will, but that's not where they shine. So by putting Rantanen down onto the second line with Kadri, which is, in my opinion, not too much of a demotion, considering Kadri was one of the top point getters of the year.
And wherever he goes, he's most likely going to be the first line center next year, aside from like 4, maybe 5 other teams in the league.
Yeah. So now you're pairing with another first line center pretty much. And then you have another person like Lehkonen with Nichushkin on that line. So you have 2 lines with first line center and a first line winger and a person that's willing to go into the corners and just take the hits, grind it out, just be a pain in the ass. That's a good 1-2 punch. That is hard to match. That's smart.
Well, not only that, you've got your other lines that have started to roll as well. So it just makes it that much easier for the team to be like, okay, well, if everything else is rolling, we have less of a worry to try and do these little swaps at the top. Because usually if you're doing that in the playoffs, nothing good is going to come of it. And that's not really an issue that the Avs have. And yes, it's going to be I don't think that this is going to be a 4-game series. I think that would be absolutely shocking. I do want to see a lot of games out of this series, though, just because I think these two teams, if they really start to get each other figured out, we might start to see some crazy plays start to happen, like McDavid doing that spinorama at full speed against the Flames, Makar doing something. I just want to see who's going to make the other looks. Has. Yeah, I just want to see, is it going to be Makar that makes McKinnon look bad, or not McKinnon, McDavid, or McDavid that looks Makar look bad, because it's bound to happen, because those two end up on the ice against each other a lot. And you're not expecting Draisaitl to do crazy moves right now. The dude just like hobbles into place and scores still. He's
Yeah.
still like the most productive player in the playoffs with everybody knows he only has one ankle right now.
Yeah, he's pretty much, when you would go to like a public skate and there was always that kid with the chair, just like skating and pushing a chair. That is Draisaitl. He's got a stick on his back like it's a sword, and he like pushes the chair into the offensive zone, and then he pulls on the stick, and he's just like, "All right, I'm good," and then they just feed him the puck and he scores.
Nuge and Hyman are like pushing him into position.
Exactly. That is 100% Edmonton Oilers hockey. No, I'm kidding. No, but the series has been really interesting already, and it's been literally one game. I haven't, obviously, since we're recording this, I don't have a TV in my room. I just have a computer monitor, and I have poor internet. So I can't stream the game while we do it. Plus, nobody wants to hear me going, "Oh, come on," the whole time. So right now we are just watching the box score, but seeing that it's 3-0, again, it's nice to see high scoring games. It's been a long time since we've seen playoff series with like these big time numbers, and it's fun.
Especially when you had now 2 eliminated teams, Dallas and Calgary, and everybody was like, okay, it's the Jake Ottinger show, and then all of a sudden they move on, and it's Markstrom is what happened there? And Igor's kind of done the opposite, because we can go to that series if you want, because that one, started up last night, and I don't think anybody saw game 1 between the Rangers and Tampa going like that. However, you look up the stats. What is it now? 7 times in a row, the team that comes off the game 7 wins in dominant fashion against the team that just swept in the previous round. And that was a pretty one-sided game. It looks that way. If you look at the analytics side, so like the Money Puck or whatever it is that does the deserve to win-o-meter, it was like 80, almost 80% for Tampa. But that's every single New York Rangers game, because they just let every good shot get in at Shesterkin. And he looked like the Vezina winner that he's most likely going to be.
Yeah, he was in amazing form. Like, just watching him move, it seemed effortless, which, like, as much as I don't want Colorado to lose, I want them to go to the Stanley Cup Finals. And as much as I don't want the Rangers to win and go to the Stanley Cup Finals. But the one thing I do want is a Mike Smith versus Igor Shesterkin game, simply because, do you want to see a man who looks like his body is being controlled by strings, as Mike Smith is, and versus Igor, who is like composed and looks solid? Like, it's just, they're so different. They play such a different game, and Igor is so confident in net. It's great. Honestly, I love it. I love seeing a goalie just like rise up out of nowhere. Maybe it's a Nedeljkovic situation again. Maybe he does next year. He's not so as good, but I mean, he's definitely proving that he is. I think he's the real deal, and it's exciting. It's really exciting to see that again.
Oh, I absolutely agree. And poor Rangers fans, they go from one of the greatest goalies to never win a cup to potentially a goalie that could win them a cup this year. The way that he's playing, and not only that, I know the kid line and Kreider. You don't realize his playoff stats are scary. Like, he has a ridiculous amount of playoff goals, especially in elimination games. So the interesting thing though is Tampa's got that 17-0 streak. And for those that don't know, Tampa Bay is 17-0 after coming off of a loss. They have not lost back-to-back games since they were swept by Columbus. And on those back-to-back games, aside from the series against the Leafs, Tampa's been like dominant, very dominant in those games. So
yeah,
it's going to be interesting. Apparently, Point was skating before the game and was struggling though, so it seems like he may not be back at all this series. potentially. And it's crazy for me to say because I was very against the Rangers. I still stand by they're probably the worst team remaining at this point. But
I love it.
their they've got, like, you can argue based on the stats of Vasilevsky in the last series against Florida that he's the best goalie. But the way Shesterkin showed up in game one, the way that he can take over games and he doesn't seem to get rattled. And who cares if the Rangers give up all those shots and their defense doesn't defend? They're scoring like the Panthers did in the regular season, and that's a problem for Tampa, Colorado, or Edmonton.
And I'm so happy to see Heedle heat up. Philly Heat coming in. He has 4 goals in 2 games, I think it is.
What a time to get hot, by the way, eh?
And like, he was a first round draft pick a couple years back, and it's good to see that gear click in for a player that was probably counted out. Like I think about like Tyson Jost, for instance, like first round draft pick, and it just never worked out, whether it was something he was called up too early or whatever it is, conditioning didn't work out, the line mates didn't work out. It's just so nice to see him playing with, I believe the line is, because I'm not a Rangers fan, so I don't know the line matchups off the top of my head, but I believe the matchup is Philly Heat, Capo Caco, and I'm pretty sure it's Lafreniere.
Talk about 2 players that, especially Lafreniere, all it took was finding that line. I know you were very critical of him earlier on in the year, and
100%.
I had said the issue for him is that there's an embarrassment of riches ahead of him. And what did Tampa Bay do to win their last 2 cups? They had the best third line in hockey. Their third line could match up against first lines. I think the kid line is that, except it's the young guns instead of Coleman, Gaudreau, and Yanni Gourde. That line is probably going to end up being the difference maker in this series.
That's the third line. I just looked up.
That's what it is, though. Like, you have to HBK line when Pittsburgh won theirs. That was the third line with why can't I think of who was with Kessel on that line? Bonino and
something with an H.
Yeah, somebody with an H. I can't think of it, but it's the recent trend in the last few years is you have to have the best third line. And I think the Rangers have it right now because I can't tell you who the third line is on Tampa right now. You obviously know who the third line is.
Hagel.
Oh, yeah.
So it's Hagel, Nick Paul, and then someone else.
So 2 traded players, so they're trying to remake the magic.
They're trying to rebuild it, yeah.
You obviously know the Avs one, but who cares about the Edmonton Oilers' third line? Like, their third and fourth line finally got points in the last game. The last game. So and that's what we know about them anyway.
I mean,
the Rangers are scary.
I look at the Rangers lineup, and on paper, it is probably one of the better lineups in the league. So first line, Chris Kreider, Mika Zibanejad, Frank Vetrano, which good for him. Good for him to get up on that top line. And it's also interesting because I feel like that is sort of like a Mikko Rantanen sort of thing, because the second line is Artemi Panarin, which is insane that Panarin's on the second line.
But that's what's so scary, right?
Yeah. Ryan Strome, and then Andrew Kopp. So Andrew Kopp with the right wing.
Which, by the way, Jets fans were so happy that the Rangers moved on because now they get a first-round draft pick instead of a second round because the Rangers made it to the conference final for that Andrew Kopp trade. So the Rangers are like, well, we don't care because if we win the Cup, then it's a 32nd pick. So that top 6 is scary. And then, you go to a first overall pick, a second overall pick, and I can't remember what Heedle was at, but like it's called the kid line. It could be the first round line. Yeah. And then, of course, you've got just the bruisers on the fourth line.
Tyler Mott, Barclay Goudreau, and Ryan Reeves. And
that is like straight up 90s goon line, by the way.
But I do want to kind of talk about Ryan Reeves a little bit.
I think I know where you're going with this, but we'll see.
because have you noticed that he is playing good?
He always
Like,
has, but when he was
he's
on
cleaned it
Vegas,
up a bit.
they basically said, "You are the pit bull. You're gonna
Yeah.
go cause as much trouble as you can. Try and stay out of the penalty box. If you don't, no big deal." But he has hands. He's shown it in the past,
Mhm.
and the fact that you've got Goudreau, who's your back-to-back champion on your team, centering your fourth line, and Tyler Mott, who spin the wheel. Who's he going to injure on Tampa this round? But I mean, that you go from the third line
It's
of
not Mott that does that.
wasn't it Mott? No, who was it?
No. That's
Trouba.
Trouba.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh right, former Jet. My bad. But that fourth line, they can shut you down, or they're going to go toe to toe. I didn't think I would say this at the start of the playoffs, especially with how much they struggled against Pittsburgh. They probably rival Colorado for the most complete team right now, and because Kemper's out, I'd almost put the edge to the Rangers, because if Shesterkin keeps playing the way that he does, even though he had that almost injury scare, Tampa's Tampa. They're going to probably win this next game unless the streak ends. If the streak ends, then it's anybody's Stanley Cup, honestly. But this Rangers team, this could end up being one of the best rebuilds we ever see in our lifetime. Obviously, a big part of that is giving 10 plus million to Panarin, but
yeah. But the one weakness that I can see for sure, though, is their defense. Like, we've talked about how many high danger chances Shesterkin has to see, and he sees too many high danger. And like, you look at the names on it, and like, you've got Adam Fox, that's fantastic, but he's paired with Ryan Lindgren, and he's good.
Well, the whole thing with Lindgren, especially from watching, I've watched way too much Rangers hockey. It bothers me. So you know how I think it's Steve Dangle podcast always talks about the sword and the spear and the shield.
Yeah.
Obviously, Fox is your spear. Lindgren, I think he has like the most or second most block shots. The dude is literally every single shift hobbling to the bench, goes back out the next one, and he's good to go.
Yeah.
Who cares if he's not the biggest name on
he's
defense?
The paladin.
He is. Yeah, he is honestly he is the tank / healer. He's double rolling in the back there to allow the Rangers to do these crazy things, and it's working because Fox is setting, or he's like a few points away from setting records as a defenseman. Between him and Makar, it's crazy to watch, but
you look at the second line, though, and that's where the drop-off hits.
Oh, absolutely.
So Keandre Miller, good player, but still
the drop
has a
from
lot of,
first pairing to second pairing, though, is monumental.
It's almost like a first to a third is what it feels like. So you've got Keandre Miller and then Jacob Trouba, and Trouba's really good at hurting people, and that's about it. And then, well, no, he can do other things, but
he hurts people.
And then you've got Justin Braun and Braden Schneider. Again, they're not bad players. They're obviously better than we ever will be.
Oh yeah,
combined, and everybody probably in our neighborhoods combined, they will be better than all of that. But you just, when you stack it up against, I love that we're doing Stanley Cup matchups now, and in the sense of Colorado versus New York, but if you match up the defensive pairings, that is where the edge would be. And as much as Colorado's defense has not looked good, they still would be the better of the two teams, in my opinion. I know obviously I'm a little bit biased, but if you can have Bowen Byram as a second pairing defenseman and he just continues to get better every single game, that's
just don't let him on the ice when Trouba's on the ice. Seriously. But here's the thing with the Rangers, though, is that's honestly part of their game plan. They know when Fox and Lindgren aren't on the ice, it's shot after shot after shot. You have to imagine that every single time Shesterkin sees them go to the bench, he's like, okay, here we go. And he just gets himself ready for 17 shots that most other goalies in the league would give up 16 goals on. The highlights from game 1 was absolutely unreal. It's Yeah, I've completely swapped from where I started on the Rangers, which takes a lot because look at what is on my cup for those of you watching. That is the New Jersey Devils logo. I have my Devils hat right here. And I think the Rangers are probably going to take the East at this rate.
I think that if they win tomorrow, so tomorrow being Friday because we're recording Thursday night, but if they win the game tomorrow and they are able to break that Tampa Bay win after a loss streak, I don't think Tampa can come back. I think that that will be that final stone.
Because they've never had to do it in any of their cup runs.
No.
So it would be like that's the thing. Yeah, you've won 2 cups in a row. This would be a whole different thing. And at least this time it wouldn't be Bobrovsky that they're going up against, but Panarin's there. Did you see the post on Reddit about how good Panarin is against Tampa? He eats Tampa Bay alive. Like the stats going back, even when he was with Columbus, it is a one-sided matchup, and that series is crazy. I didn't think it would end up being as good as what we are most likely going to get. I was honestly hoping that Edmonton, Colorado, at least at this point in the second intermission, we would see like 8 goals on the board, but
nah, I mean, I don't really like as much as it's like I'm going to kind of contradict myself a little bit, but as much as it is nice to see these huge numbers, the 8-6 game or whatever that ended up being, like that to me is a bit of a clown show. I like when it's like 4-2 or 5-2, like, normal games, but like those are the 8-6, that's like regular season wheels fall off. It's just a point sort of thing.
Well, that's different for you though, because you've got the Stanley Cup champion banner behind you. You're wearing an Avs jersey as as somebody with no horse in the race. Obviously, I've stated in the past, the Oilers are my second team. The crazier the games as a neutral observer, the more fun it is and the more likely I am to tune in. For you and other Avalanche fans, it's the worst possible type of game.
Oh yeah.
So it's one of those, like, if it combined for like 100 goals over 7 games between those two teams, that would be a non-Avs or Oilers fan's dream. And an absolute nightmare for anybody who cheers for or is involved in either of those organizations.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I don't know. Maybe it's just me being an old curmudgeon or however you say it, but it's just
that first game.
Yeah.
That first game, if you had somebody who had only ever watched a game or two of hockey before, and that was the game that they got to watch, that's how you pull somebody in. Sometimes the playoffs, they're not always going to be these goalie battles, which for diehard hockey fans, that Calgary-Dallas series, it was good for that because it's not very often we get to see a goalie just kind of take over kind of the way that happened in that series. But you're watching 4 of the best players in the league go at it, and strangely enough, they weren't the ones doing most of the plays. It's fun, exciting hockey to watch as a neutral observer, and it just doesn't help your heart rate.
No, not at all. It's so much stress watching
this
that
is probably
game.
helping your stress not watching right now, by the way.
Well, see, the problem I have with the Avs in the playoffs, and this is a legitimate concern, is that we are now in Toronto Maple Leafs territory of no lead is safe.
Oh yeah.
No lead is safe with this damn team right now, because as soon as they get a good enough cushion, like if they got to 4-0 right now, it's currently the end of the second, it is 3-0. If they hit 4-0, they would back off. That's what they do. They start to ease back a bit. They're like, okay, we've got a comfortable thing. And then suddenly 1 goal, 2 goal, 3 goal, and it's a close game again. And they have to fight for the win. And at that point, the other team's red hot and they have to try and get back to that. No, they've done it countless times this playoffs. They still are able to win, but at the same time, I don't like it. I hate it so much.
Like without that offside, not offside goal, and then the penalty, and then Colorado scoring on that power play, that's a tie game at that point between Edmonton and Colorado. So it's if I can see that. No, minus 2 goals. That would have been it still would have been tied going 2-2 into the second
net.
period. Yeah, it would have been tied 2-2 going into the second period though. And then Colorado scores on
in the
second on that first power play. So it'd be a totally different game. One thing I can see right now though, just as we kind of live go along with this, there could be momentum. Edmonton does have a power play to start the third period, which will be going here shortly on our side of things. So I asked you last time because we did this while there was a game going on. It is currently 3-0 Colorado. Score for the end of the game.
Oh, I don't like this game.
See, I've got to ask you before play gets started.
All right. I think it's going to be 5-3, but I think Edmonton is going to score 5 unanswered goals.
Ooh, okay. Sorry, if anybody watching, looking down, I'm literally sending myself notes so I remember these things for later because my keyboard is way too loud to type on. Yep. So, okay. And here's the thing. If a team's going to do it,
Edmonton's proven they can.
If they are one of those teams that, if your foot comes off the gas just slightly, or McDavid sees you're out of position, he eats players alive. Like, it is watching. It's nice to finally see what he can do in the playoffs. Like one of my favorite things in the past week was seeing that John Tortorella quote going around that if McDavid wants to have success in the playoffs, you're not just going to outscore your problem. And it's like, ta-da!
This is the entire series.
The Oilers
a suspect. So
the least amount of goals they had in the last series was 4. They lost when they scored 7. Yeah, it's
and so I'm actually very confident with Pavel Francouz in that he's a very good goaltender. And I've talked about it before, but again, he's a right-hand catch, which is a little bit of a different thing for most teams to go up against because there's only 2 starting right-hand catch, him and Peterson on the Kings. So it's a bit more of a difficult game to play against. And he's been working really hard to try and get a starter position. That is his goal. He doesn't want to be a backup. He doesn't mind being a backup at all, but he wants to be a starter. And like you can really see it in his play. It's really evolved since they picked him up a couple years back, or at least started playing him a couple years back. And the other thing that's kind of nice that makes me kind of happy is the backup that they have for him in case, it's goalies in the playoffs, which means who knows, one of them can just blow up for some reason.
Especially if they play for Colorado.
Yeah, goalies are like from Spinal Tap. For anybody that might be listening that has never seen the movie, this is Spinal Tap. Pretty much their drummer just dies unexpectedly for no reason. Like one person turned into goo. But that is the goaltending situation with Colorado almost every single playoffs. But the nice thing is the backup for Francouz right now is not Hunter Miska like it had been throughout the season. Hunter Miska was the backup for the AHL team. Not even the starter for the AHL team, and they would call him up generally. And it's not that he's a bad goaltender; he's just not NHL tier, not yet. They have Justus Anunin. I believe I'm saying his name correctly. And you have seen him if you've watched any of the World Juniors or really any international competition. You've seen him in net. and he is very, very good. He would play for Team Finland, and he is a
Oh, I know exactly. Yeah, I remember him.
Justus Anunin is a very, very talented goaltender. He's still very young, but it makes me comfortable knowing that if Francouz is out, there is at least another goaltender in there that has been known to carry teams. And that's what he did for Team Finland. I think he carried them to a silver medal because the team was just not there, but he was. So it's good.
And say he doesn't even get into a game because Francouz plays well, that might be one of the best things for him, seeing that action not up from the press box, but sitting there alongside and being a part of that. You just never, goalies are the weirdest thing on the planet. Like, half of them break into the league when they're almost like 30 years old, it seems. And
Pavel Francouz, I think he's 33, 34, and this could be his shining time.
Jack Campbell's going to make the most money of his career, and he's up there in age. So yeah, as of right now, he's shut out the Oilers in this game.
Oh, you said it.
Well, if it's me that causes it, then that's absolutely hilarious, because you know it won't be me that causes it.
I know.
just because of that, it's gonna end up being like Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, or like the fourth line, somebody on the fourth line, Derek Ryan gets a hat trick.
No, you know what it's gonna be? Tyson Barrie.
Tyson
Barrie is going to come in and score 3 goals and ruin everybody's life.
Can I bring something up? So before the playoffs started, we had talked about like unsung heroes. I would like to point out, I said the wrong former Leafs defenseman. I said Tyson Barrie. Cody Ceci, I think Toronto wasn't using him properly.
Yeah.
He is showing everybody that Toronto had it completely wrong with him, because he is so good for Edmonton this playoff run.
Well, I think it's because they were trying to use him as, I mean, we go back to the sword and shield sort of mentality, and they were trying to use him as both, but neither. Like there wasn't really a set sort of way that he was supposed to play, is what it felt like. He would attack on the rush, and he'd then have to scramble back, which obviously that's not his forte. He's more of a shut down and move the play out. He is a defensive defenseman to the core. And he might have been an offensive or a two-way earlier on in his career, but he's older now. He has to change his game. And clearly, the defensive coach on Edmonton said, hey, you're older now. You need to change your game. Like, just like Jonathan Quick is another really good example of that, in my opinion, of, hey, you've had 4,000 groin injuries. Maybe you shouldn't play the way you used to play. Let's figure out a way to adapt to the way that you're playing now. And it works. It clearly works. Like Joe Pavelski, that's another one. Like, he's not playing the same way. Like, if you watch a tape from 10 years ago versus right now, those are going to be two completely different players on the ice.
Oh, yeah.
But he's still proving that there's value in him because he's adapted his play. And you know what? Good for Cody Ceci and good for the coaching staff for saying, hey, this is what you got to do. Because I'm positive that that's what happened.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea, but I'm just pretty sure.
Sometimes, yeah, and sometimes it could have been just getting him out of Toronto, because he was anything goes wrong, well, it was Ceci's fault. Toronto seems to do that with a lot of players. One thing we haven't talked about, and we've talked about this team a lot, actually, is during this round of the playoffs, the NHL is doing the awards a lot differently this year. Obviously, before the pandemic, they would do the giant show in Vegas to be like, hey, here's who won what now. About 2 hours ago, they announced who won the Jack Adams Award. That's Coach of the Year. I'm not sure if you've seen who won it yet, Pat, or not.
Oh, no, I haven't.
Okay. Who do you think, since I did know before, I just wanted to verify, if I remember correctly, it was whoever the head coach was for the Panthers. Was it Burnett? Yes.
Yeah.
Burnett, I should have looked this up. I believe
Wasn't it Burnett, Cooper, and
it wasn't Cooper.
the New York Rangers one, Gallant?
Was it Gallant?
We're so bad at
Yes,
this.
it was. Okay, so yes, Burnett, Gallant,
Who's
and
the third one that clearly won it?
can you guess?
No, I can't remember.
Daryl Sutter.
Oh, good for him.
His first time winning it, which is kind of crazy.
Well,
he was
because he has good teams.
He was also a finalist for the award back in 2003, 2004, when he was also the head coach of the Calgary Flames.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, just because you have a good team doesn't mean that you're going to be winning the awards for it. I mean, you look at Jared Bednar, like he's had a really solid team for quite a while. They put up really good points. Nothing.
He was tied for 5th in voting with Todd McClellan of LA. So it went.
McClellan, I think, should have been higher. Personally, I think that McClellan should have been in the top 3.
So it went Daryl Sutter, Andrew Burnett, Gerard Gallant. There was massive separation between all of them. Dean Evison, Minnesota, in 4th place.
Okay, that makes sense.
Bednar, McClellan tied. Rod Brindamore, Mike Sullivan, Pittsburgh, and then after that, it doesn't matter. Somehow, Bruce Boudreau and Jay Woodcroft both got 1 second and 2 third place votes, so they're tied for 12th.
I mean, I think Woodcroft should have gotten
season. Yeah,
Woodcroft should have gotten much higher. Obviously, he's been able to turn this team around. I also think St. Louis should have gotten at least a couple nods. That's another coach that really they came in. So yeah, I feel like there should almost be an award for mid-season coach acquisition, best one out of all of them, because I would love to see Woodcroft, St. Louis, and Bruce, like just the head butting between the three. They have to fight it out to see who wins.
And which, by the way, Marty St. Louis officially named head coach for the Montreal Canadiens, which Habs fans are stoked for because they've got a new head coach. In a few weeks' time, they will have a shiny new number 1 overall draft. And if anybody thinks it's not going to be Shane Wright, they're crazy.
I'm seeing more and more projections that, they're looking. Centers are pretty easy to find, and they have good center depth.
They said the exact same thing in the Jack Hughes Capo Caco draft, and that one has shown that was a clear number 1 and number 2. So
at least right now,
yeah. So I honestly, whoever the Habs take first, if they don't take Wright, the Devils will, and I will be ecstatic for it.
Yep.
Who cares that we have a franchise center ahead of him and a captain rocking second line center? You figure it out.
You teach one of them to play wing. That's what they're going to have to do if they do have to pick Wright, because let's be honest, if Wright is on the table, they're not going to walk away from that. That's stupid.
No, it's one of those things that if, say, Slav goes first, before they get the jersey on him, I'm pretty sure I messaged this to you, like the Devils would run up and be like, Shane Wright, get up here.
They just run up and kick him. They're just like, screw you guys. We don't care about you. Shane Wright.
They get booed in Montreal to draft Shane Wright. The only thing that does make me sad, though, is that how much better it would have been if this was the Lafreniere draft, because the French Canadian kid getting drafted.
Maybe they go for Savoy, unless he's not French, even though he sounds French.
Didn't we look that up before, and he was from like Alberta or Regina or something like that?
That is the one that currently plays for Seattle. But I think there's another Savoy or Lavoie. I don't know. There's another name that's very French sounding. So, but it's the same with like Laurent Brossoit, which isn't Laurent Brossoit. It's Laurent Brossoit or something like that. It's the same with like La Croix drinks. They're not La Croix. It's LaCroix. It's the most French-looking title of a drink ever, and
LaCroix.
LaCroix. Come on. Liars.
Honestly, for the draft, at this point, I'm just so happy we're second because it's the it's a weird thing because the Devils were 2 first overall picks, and then obviously the year for Nico going number 1, there's all that pressure behind, and he's still one of the top players from that draft. He is not the top player, nor will he ever be.
Nope.
When you draft second, at least there's the pressure of if your pick doesn't quite make it, it's not that first overall bust, which is a scarier thing to see. Mind you, the Devils have a what did Zach go, 6th or 7th, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's gone soon. Change of scenery player, like you were talking about with Tyson Yost.
Yep.
He's good. He's not what he was advertised and what the Devils want him to be.
Yeah, and I mean that's the risk with drafting. You rely on your scouts to look at these people, and you rely on a lot of scouts. And I wouldn't be surprised, like, we start to see a little bit of a shift in the way that scouting's done, but you never know because it's so different. And you look at Moneyball, one of my favorite movies, by the way, Moneyball.
It's so good.
And on paper, Billy Beane was unstoppably good. He was supposed to be the next biggest thing in baseball. And then he got to the major league and it just didn't work. He couldn't find it. He couldn't find his groove. It just never worked out for him. And I find that like that's a little bit more solo. Like baseball, you kind of, as much as you're on a team, like you play one specific position, you have to catch the ball in that position. You hit alone. Hockey, you have to work as a team. So it's like you don't find the right teammates. You don't land on the right line. You don't get enough time, whatever it may be.
Not everybody gets Vegas coming into the league and suddenly you're a superstar.
Yeah, so there's such a gamble with it, and that's honestly what makes the draft so fun is like seeing who they're going to take that risk on. And that's why I really, 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 really hope New Jersey does get Slavlowski, or however you pronounce his last name, because I think that'll be such a good fit for their team dynamic to have that size, to have that physicality, but also that skill. I think that's necessary for the team because they don't particularly have that very much. They have Miles Wood, but that's kind of about it.
That's a different style. He's the Tasmanian devil on the ice. And the only thing that I do hope is that we've got a scouting staff that is as competent and believes in themselves as much as the Detroit Red Wings. You and I were talking about this a few weeks ago. We're getting off the playoffs during this, but I was watching something on the Red Wings because the draft when they took Sider, that, like, if I remember correctly, TSN didn't even have a graphic ready for him. All they had was like his name. That was it, and everybody was like, "Did Yzerman just come here to screw over the Red Wings?" And fast forward a few years, and there's a good chance that from that draft, he could be the top 2, top 3 player.
Yeah,
like that's the thing with the draft sometimes. Even if you're at a higher pick, you might see something. So I'm just hoping that it's a player that can help the Devils. Obviously, if the Devils are going to do anything, a forward isn't going to help. A defenseman isn't going to help. We don't even know if our star-ish goalie is coming back next season. We don't even know if we have a goalie next season. So luckily, there's somebody on the market who the Devils could go after that I kind of like from Toronto, so there's that.
Yeah, true. And that's why this offseason is going to be really incredibly interesting to watch, because I think that there is going to be some pretty groundbreaking moves, ones that are really going to shake it up, because now we are getting into high contracts, and goalies know they can get high contracts. Unfortunately, Grubauer kind of set that bar a bit higher. But that also, by setting the bar higher, he also made it lower.
Yeah, I get what you mean. Because the offseason was all about defensemen and all about goalies. And you just don't know what you're going to get until it happens, because a player or two could get locked down immediately. And who knows which way it's going to go.
Well, and I think that this year it's going to be there's still going to be obviously a need for defensemen. Like there's a
There
need
always
for all
is
the
for
players.
right
Like come
shot
on.
defensemen every year.
Yeah. There's still going to be that overarching theme, but goaltenders are now going to be this like really hot topic. And then what we talked about earlier in this episode, third liners. They're going to be teams that are looking at what's happening right now, and you've got proof of it with Tampa. They had that flawless line, that flawless third round line that won them 2 cups. Say what you will about all the other players, they did fantastic, don't get me wrong, but that third line without it, what happens? Well, we're seeing it.
I
Not as good.
I wonder if we're going to see a team that is doing pretty well next year that essentially trades away the farm and future for a complete third line.
I
Like
wonder.
they pick and choose from a few teams, they make it work. Like it is one of those crazy things that yeah, your first and second line are important, but there's so much evidence to back it up now that it's crazy. And yeah, like Colorado and New York are probably the best third lines remaining. That is who I right now have pegged to go to the Cup final. I know that I said whoever won between Tampa and Toronto would go to the Cup, but uh, I wasn't expecting New York A to move on or B to finally play like a team that is somewhat competent at defense, but then they have the best goalie currently in the world backstopping them. And I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of won Tampa a Stanley Cup or two at this point.
Yeah. The one thing I am going to say is I just made a face when I looked up Colorado's third line because it's different from last game. Uh, so
New Hook.
yeah, so their top line is Landeskog, McKinnon, Nichushkin, Lehkonen, Kadri, Rantanen, Newhook, Comfer, Abe Kubel.
Okay, so no, Comfer was on the third line, but that's a shift on the other wing, right?
Yeah, so Abe Kubel, he was scratched last game, so good for him. Like that was a waiver wire pickup, by the way, from Philly. Like the fact that they were able to pick up somebody like Abe Kubel, he's just a get in the corner and piss you off kind of player. He's just so annoying to play against. Like I can't imagine having to play against him. He just looks like a little gnat just running around the ice, just annoying players. But then yeah, the fourth line is Cogliano, Darren Helm with that game-winning goal again on the anniversary of his other game-winning goal in overtime
To send Detroit to the Stanley Cup Finals.
right. And then Logan O'Connor. So honestly, 3 and 4 they could swap and it would be painful to play against either one. And Darren Helm is another. So Darren Helm is another player actually that's very interesting to me. I didn't know he was that quick. Did you know he was that fast?
I didn't realize he was still that fast. Some players they just have this like sneaky speed to them that you're just like, oh, look at him go, I guess.
I feel bad for Cogliano because Darren Helm can skate his brains out. Logan O'Connor is so fast. Sometimes I think when he's on the ice, I mistake him for McKinnon. I'm not even lying. And then Cogliano, I'm pretty sure, doesn't he have like robotic knees at this point? Isn't he just like pretty much rebuilt from the ground up?
I don't think you're wrong on that one. Yeah, like that top to bottom, it's scary. And then I was just quickly looking at the time on ice for them. You can definitely tell that they're riding that first line and the fourth line not getting on there as much, which isn't surprising. I'm hitting record again. So little jump cut in here. My computer ran out of space during the recording, and I was trying to get ahead of it doing that. I wasn't fast enough.
Oh my god.
I guess I have this saving to the wrong spot. I'll have to fix that in the future.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, it's probably not a good thing to have us run out of tape.
No.
Oh my goodness.
I guess the difference of doing video, which is a couple gigabytes, compared to like an 80 megabyte audio file that we used to
Yeah.
have. But I mean, we were getting near the end anyway.
Yep. The one thing I do want to
Yes,
at
go ahead.
least kind of touch on is Jason Spezza. Since we last recorded, he has announced his retirement, but that is not the end of Jason Spezza in Toronto. He is going to be assistant to the regional manager. Oh, sorry, assistant to the general manager. But yeah, no, he is going to be in the head office with Kyle Dubas in some capacity, which is awesome. It's really good to see that he is staying on with Toronto. Like isn't that the lowest tenured team he played for? Or at least he
I
didn't play there as long as other ones. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
I think you're right on that. And there is, he could technically, if he wanted to, re-sign just before the trade deadline to play if he is in shape. So you never know. He's a couple points away from 1,000. So maybe the Jason Spezza veteran comes back at the deadline. They don't have to trade anything away for it. Happens. You
Who
watch,
knows?
like, if you watched him, especially in Game 5 in that series against Tampa, I'm shocked he's not going to be. Well, he'll be a head coach in this league.
Oh yeah.
He is the only reason why the Leafs calmed down and won that Game 5. Like you can watch the coaching staff step back to let him take over to calm down every single one of those players. So it's a great thing for the Leafs. You always like seeing when a player like that comes in, makes a difference, and then wants to try and stay in the game, because he seems like one of those players that he could do some major change for good in this league.
Yeah, he's very passionate about the sport. And he clearly loves the team that's there right now. There'd be no other reason for him to sign if that wasn't the case. So it's really good to see. Like, that's such an awesome fit. And he was like you said, he was such an important piece on that bench. Like, it's just a testament to the constant people saying, "Oh, veteran presence, you need a veteran presence." This is proof of what it can do. Not of it's always like it's not always successful. I mean, Patrick Marleau, they tried it, kind of worked, but it
Joe Thornton,
kind of fizzled.
they tried it.
Exactly. So whereas Jason Spezza clearly came in and just he loved the Leafs and he loved that team, and it's like good for him. He had a fantastic career. And if he does come back just to pot those few goals to hit that, that huge, I can't even think, benchmark.
1,000.
Yeah, 1,000. There you go. I couldn't. My brain is shutting down. It is 10:30, and I
Much
have
like my
worked a
computer.
long week. Yeah.
Much like the recording went.
But no, it is fantastic to see him get that job right away. Good on Dubas, good on Shanahan, good on everybody in that office to see what he can bring to the team, whether he's on the ice or not.
I think that's a good spot to end this one. There's a lot going on. By this time next week, we could be talking about Stanley Cup Finals, which is crazy to think. So looking forward to that one. Want to thank everybody, especially those who have decided to, for some reason, see what we look like. You're brave souls.
I will cut this hair. I will cut it at some point, but
your hair, you can't even, like, right now I'm kind of hidden but like I've got a mane and a half, and people sitting through me having fun doing different production things on the video side. Those of you who are still just listening along, thank you very much. Hopefully get back to putting more stuff out on socials. It all depends on how busy I am some weeks and some days, and it's hectic right now with I don't know, like an election that's happening in our province right now. So
yeah. And you also have 2 kids.
Yeah, there's that part too,
like
isn't it?
young children.
And I'm taking university courses, full-time summer load. So
yeah, and I like sitting on a couch, so we're in the same boat. No, I do social media for my job, and there's like, now we're completely deviating from hockey, but let me tell you how awful it is to be a social media person in this day and age. Obviously, this, Brian, because you're in the news area, so you have to deal with it quite a bit. But having that constantly on your feed, the last thing I want to do is post anything on my personal.
Yeah.
I do it because there are some great things, but at the same time, my goodness, there's a reason why I don't dive too deeply into social media on the side sort of thing. So, yes, we're both very very tired. I think everybody's tired.
Yep. And I think on that note, Pat, it's time to say goodbye. It's time to end the podcast. We'll talk to everybody again next week.
But wait, before we do,
Oh, I'll put you back on screen.
am I back?
Yeah, you're there.
Okay, so it's Pride Month, and
Yes.
I wanted to at least make a point on that. With it being June is Pride Month, and I wanted to, with each podcast we do, I want to call out just a nonprofit, at least here in Canada, that if you want to show support in any way, just ones that I don't know if they're the best, the worst, whatever they are, just ones that have really resonated with myself. And the first one I want to call out is, and they've partnered quite a bit with breweries, so there's other ways you can help out, is Rainbow Railroad. So actually, this one I first was brought to my attention during Canada's Drag Race. And what they do is with refugee countries, there's a lot of refugees that are gay, and it is illegal for them to be gay, and they will be killed or jailed or whatever it is. So what Rainbow Railroad does is they get funds to bring them to Canada to pretty much save their lives. It is insane. If you go to their website, it shows you how many people have requested assistance from them. So just literally begging them to get out of their country for fear of their own lives. That's like I get chills saying that out loud because nobody should have to live that way. That's insane. So over 4,000 people have currently in since January asked for help. Rainbow Railroad helps them get a safe home and get out of a place that wants them to not live anymore because of who they are. So Rainbow Railroad, you can support them by going to their website, or right now, actually, I believe it's Mill Street Organic has released a beer partnered with Rainbow Railroad. It is a lemon wheat, and you will see Lemon the drag queen on the front of it. It's actually pretty good. I've had a couple of them and quite delicious, but a lot of the proceeds from that will go towards Rainbow Railroad. So yeah, please check that out. And if you are able to donate, please do so. It is a fantastic charity for a very, very good cause.